Hello, good evening. My name is Claire Malloy. It's my great pleasure to welcome you here to WERC Artist Talk number 7. Small celebrity in the audience, this is Otis, my child, hello. So yeah, it's a great pleasure to welcome you here. I work here in Groningen. I've been here for a few months, so it's great to be here at WERC for the first time. I'm the new curator for contemporary art at Groningen Museum. And this is Joachim, who you might
and I learn a lot from it, and I hope other people do as well.
Fantastic. And so we're at talk number 7 tonight. You have invited Juliette Bibasse. Why were you interested to invite Juliette?
Well, we've been following Studio Lemercier for a long time already, and it's actually it's someone different because she's not only working. She's not an artist per se, but she's working with a lot of artists. So it's like the other side of the coin, something that. If we're talking about, all right, I want to learn how the art scene works, this is the side that you never get to hear about in art school. So it was good to hear some, yes, a different sound, basically.
Fantastic. I'll use this moment to just give you a little guide on the structure for tonight. So Juliette and I are going to be in conversation for about 45 minutes. She's going to share about many different projects she's been on. And then at the end, we've got about 15 minutes for questions. So save them there for that part of the talk. Will you join me in saying thank you to Joachim and welcoming Juliette? So Juliette, good evening. It's fantastic to have you here. Maybe to give a little introduction to your background. You come from the most interesting background. You've got a BA in performing arts. Also, you studied communication, visual communication. You also did an MA about cultural projects in public space, as well as visual arts, studying that yourself, and also communicating within arts projects. And you wear so many hats. You've had such an interesting trajectory in your working life, starting off as a graphic designer, working in communication, working as an art director, and then around about 2013, 2014, you start working as a director and also as a curator. So today I'm interested, or this evening I'm interested to hear a little bit about this part of your career, so from 2013 onwards. So yes, we're going to hear tonight about you being an independent curator, for you being a co-director of Studio Lemercier, and also the new project that you've started, being a co-founder of the Solar Lab.
Yeah, that's a lot. And I have to say as a disclaimer that the format that's proposed tonight, and thanks again for this invitation and have this presentation as a conversation, is super new to me. So at some points you will see me going back on my track and trying to not forget Claire and you guys. But it comes from me wanting to tell you so many things tonight. And after the questions, we're going to stay around and have some drinks, and then I want more questions from you guys. Can we have my screen on the screen, please? So yes, as you said briefly about everything I've done, you will see that now on a daily basis I use a bit of everything that I've learned in school, because I loved school and I did many studies. And many things that I've been doing since, digital arts around 2009, and for many years I was an artist producer, which I'm not going to go too much in depth about tonight. So I want to focus more on the curation. I'm going to start with that. I've been a curator for more or less 7 years now, and a bit by accident, I became specialized in curating for heritage, both the religious and the industrial heritage. I also love to work for unusual venues like garage, botanic gardens, abandoned chapel, you name it. And as you mentioned, I have a strong link with public space. And if you're looking, maybe I am in some way, if you're looking for troubles and constraints, there's the top of it in public space where like it's like the universe is going against you, showing art in there. So for this type of curatorial work that I'm showing now, my starting point is the space and an existing space that comes with an atmosphere, a history, and my goal is to create a dialogue between that space and the artwork that I have the crazy idea to put in that space. Also, something important I want to share is there's always this fantasy for something new, a world premiere, and I'm not at all in that line as a curator. Maybe it's something I've learned from being an artist producer for so many years, and I hope some of you in the crowd will relate to it, is that the best version of an artwork is usually version number 3. Version number 1, you're just happy it's holding up. Version number 2, you finally fixed all the problems you had. And version number 3, you're like, okay, what was the story again? So as a curator, I really go see things and meet with artists. And I love when I have this idea of readapting an artwork differently for a specific space, scaling it up, and taking also the artist outside of their comfort zone. Yeah, that's where I find creativity actually in curating, is like having this vision that maybe even the artist didn't have of showing the artworks in a different venue.
And
like
the comfort zone is for you like the white cube, the more traditional type of exhibition making, or?
So I missed the beginning of your question.
So the coming out of the comfort zone for you, when does that happen? Is that making a new iteration of a work, or is it?
Yeah, it's usually more difficult for the artists.
Okay.
I like when we have a bit of sound, even if we speak over it. Thank you. Yeah, and also as a curator, I'm a bit lost in a white cube or an exhibition space because I don't have a starting point of a list of things that are totally impossible, for example. Is a really exciting starting point for me. Sometimes my starting point are going to be the budget constraints as well. And yeah, often for artists, going out of their comfort zone is maybe losing a bit of control, which like in public space, for example, you cannot kid yourself controlling what's going to happen. And same with, for example, an artist who's always presented their piece in a black curtain kind of box, and suddenly I'm like, how about we don't put any ceiling, and then the background of your artwork is the ceiling of this beautiful chapel. And I love this relationship that the artist and myself are maybe taking a risk together, and hopefully we're happy with the results and the audiences as well. And I wanted to use this moment also to say that, so it's a complicated one, the digital arts label, that I think I'm still using and going along with, mostly because it brings specific funding. So I'm really transparent about that. And it goes with a reality that, yes, using technology comes with specific budget constraints and require more money, more investment. But as a curator, I do not believe in digital art. I believe in, is this a strong artwork or not? Is this art or not? And that's why in my curation, I like to mix artworks that can be super complex on the technological aspect, but some other artworks will be completely analog. And I really like to blur those lines in the way I curate a whole light art walk around the city. So I showed you some images from Leuven. That is a small city with small audience, so it's kind of easy to do crazy things. And now I'm showing you some images of the really big light festival of Barcelona, where it's everything outdoor, thousands of people, yeah, like a lot of like big audience, and only one request from the people who hired me that there is no queues. Like they didn't really care about the artistic aspect or level. It's just like no queues because we don't want people to complain about queues. So that was a great challenge. So
was this achievable?
Yeah,
it was.
We achieved the no queues.
No queues.
Yeah, we kind of cheated. One good way to have no queues is to have a lot more venues really spread. Then people walk a lot from one place to another, and there's less queues. And the most challenging context I've ever had to work with was the underground network of Montreal, where I was invited as a digital art curator, but for contexts that were hallways connecting subway stations, food courts, administrative corridors. This is the ground floor of a financial building, and the event lasts for almost a month. There is zero surveillance and tiny budgets. And so my answer to that was really to think about different ways to present digital conceived and sometimes digitally running artworks, like this famous piece from Anna Riedler, but in a way that's non-digital and realistic to present for over a month with no surveillance and 400 euros production budget.
And how did this feel for you, the title of digital art? Was it something that you felt like, I feel comfortable with this, or was it something you felt more like, no, it's contemporary art? I mean, why?
Yeah, that's something I think 15 years ago when we all started, it made a lot of sense. Because we didn't know what we were doing, and we needed to have maybe this little space just for us to figure out what we were doing next and where we wanted to go. And the more things evolved, the more we were like, wait, but are we artists? So then we make art. Why is there such a thing as sculptural art that has its own event, and then painting art that it will be only that? It used to be like that for a while, but it's less and less how art is presented, right? So I think it's really like the two sides of a coin. Like if it allows you to apply to a specific funding, then I'm an expert in digital art, and I love when I'm invited as a curator by people who don't know anything about it, because then I can really this is a good example how at Stripe Festival, where I was a curator, I decided to curate an artwork that was aquariums with living hermit crabs. And for me, this is an artwork that has its place at a festival like Stripe, where people expect like projectors, screens, blah, blah, blah. Because the process to create those beautiful, unique shells is using a lot of technologies, 3D scanning, 3D printing, doing it again, prototyping, and achieving those beautifully crafted, unique shells. Each of them has the skyline of a big city. So you have Tokyo, Paris, and they're given to the hermit crabs, and they can decide to move in those shells or stay in the shells they were bought from the aquarium shop. Yep. And it was also a super interesting process to bring living animals into a big festival that's used to fix a broken projector and not really maintain hermit crabs alive. And it was a big hit. And there was a spare hermit crab in the offices that became the mascot of the festival.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that you adopted.
No, but it was super interesting because we did everything by the book, hired someone who approved that there was no harm done to the living animals, and we had a professional of like aquarium testing the water every day, and it was a super interesting process to bring life into the very cold, uninhabited digital universe.
Yeah, what an exciting experiment. In Groningen Museum, the museum is divided into 4 different pavilions, and there's one from Philip Stark, the designer, and he wanted to have an aquarium, but it never worked out. But that was, 94, so maybe we could get your knowledge and have some hermit crabs in the aquarium.
I want to say I feel bad every time artists want to put living plants in an artwork, and then you visit the exhibition months after, and it's like zombie plants, and you're like, this feels really wrong. So And we have a project where we really wanted to use living plants, and we didn't want this, so we realized we don't have the expertise, and maybe we can do it in a different way, and we decided to have living plants outdoor and to use dried plants for the indoor version, you know, instead of like having these sad-looking plants in an exhibition.
Yeah, because otherwise you really have to hire someone with green fingers, someone with botanical knowledge, and that's often just something that budget requirements just don't allow. It's very difficult to keep plants alive. Yeah. So we've gone from curating with constraints and killing plants to now not killing plants,
not killing animals,
to talking about Studio Lemercier. Maybe you could give a little intro, just in case anyone isn't familiar with the studio,
Joanie,
with the evolution, and who these two people are.
Yes. So on the right side is Joanie Lemercier. We've been collaborating together for almost 13 years, and Joanie is a man, because sometimes people still believe I'm Joanie because of his very confusing name.
Okay.
But you do have confusing names in the Netherlands. So
and gender is a construct, so we won't worry.
Yeah, true. No, and we love it when people think I'm Joanie and then he can't really be Juliette, you know, like it's kind of a funny situation. And yeah, over the years, my role evolved from being Joanie's producer, agent, to being co-director of the studio with him. It took many, many years to even get to this title. We tried many different names to kind of represent what I was doing more and more, being like way too much for just being the producer. And it's also our relationship in the way we make artworks that evolved. And above it all, it's how at one point we wanted to do things differently as a studio. And I kind of became the person who had this role to project ourselves as a studio in the future. So we really went from having opportunity coming to us, and us being like, okay, this is the opportunity, let's do a new project, and let's do another project. And then at some point you're like, okay, but where are we going? So as a co-director with Joanie, it sounds crazy to say that, but it's been only 3 years that we sit once a month and ask ourselves, what are we doing? And kind of imagine, okay, does this feel right? Is this going somewhere? Do we need to find new partners to create new opportunities to go in this direction that is not our usual network? So I'm showing a couple of usual projects, and I wanted to show you a bit of this expertise what we developed around projecting on water screens. This really came from our motto for so many years, that is light as a medium, space as a Canva, and this goal to escape the screen, to not create another rectangular screen people would be like paralyzed in front of, a bit like tonight, we're surrounded by rectangular screens. And the best you can get to create something intangible that will show light is water. So it was almost 3-4 years of R&D, and it happened because we moved from being all around the world with just a computer in the backpack to having a physical studio space in Brussels. And the first thing we did in this physical space was to bring a projector, put some water everywhere, and try out. And this expertise we created allowed us to develop this really large-scale audiovisual show that was very important for us as a studio, because its constellation was presented in most of the big light festivals around the world, reaching out 400 people every show. So taking us to a wide audience that is not the audience that usually comes to electronic music, digital art festivals. And we also developed this other indoor custom-made water screen that is creating much more finer atomized water, so that when nothing is projected on, it's completely transparent. So you have this mid-air magical image that appears out there. And recently we got commissioned by Super Blue Miami to create this installation that is a bit in between those two, a bit in between Brume, silent, contemplative, black and white, and constellation, Hollywood style music kind of show. Lightfall is using our indoor curtain custom made water screen. with laser lights and a collaboration with an amazing musician who's called Murkoff. And I'm showing you these 3 examples to show you a bit how we develop an expertise and spend many, many, many days and many hours onto something that we can use in different ways.
Yeah, I was really hopeful that you'd show these projects because they were the first ones that I knew from Studio Lemercier. And I wanted just to ask about Olaf Eliasson. Is the work of Eliasson like an influence? Is it something?
It's a big inspiration.
Yeah.
And you know this rainbow piece he did on a water screen?
Yeah.
Do you know? It's like
it's from 1993. It's called Beauty.
Yeah.
And it was
you're in an exhibition room and you enter and there's just enough of thin water to create a rainbow mid-air. And what we love the most about this piece is that when it was shown at Tate, they released on YouTube a production video with the production team of Tate, who explained how they were facing this challenge of putting water in an exhibition space, and they just went with it. And we're like, if they did it, we can do it.
Great.
Because we were really concerned to work a lot on something that we would never find anyone crazy enough to show with us. And so many times we sent this YouTube video, look, it's the Tate people. And it was super, on top of being a big inspiration on like showing the beauty of light and making something really pure, it was very encouraging, and we really love how Eliasson and many others share a lot of the behind the scene and are not afraid to talk about how do you make this artwork possible, and we try to do the same.
Yeah, because it's a very different aesthetic that the studio has, but yeah, there were certain things where I thought I feel like so many artists in this digital art generation are so starkly influenced by Eliasson, but it's not really talked about that much. So I had to ask the question.
About what? Like people don't say they're influenced or inspired?
Yeah.
I think we're really honest and proud and happy to say there's because it's really important that we are equally influenced by the artwork itself as the way it's being made and communicated. And for example, is a really big exhibition at Versailles.
Yep.
There was so many behind the scenes, and for me, sharing that with the audience and other artists is the best way to create a connection as well as like the art itself, like being really it takes like a team, it takes like problems to fix, it takes all of that, and then people are like, okay, so it's human, it's normal, it's human made, you know, it's not like
it's nice. It almost feels like a kind of open source approach also,
exactly.
Not to sort of think it's the sleight of hand and one must never uncover how it happens. Like it feels actually also very exciting to know how things are made.
Exactly. Yeah. One big inspiration for Joanie, for example, is Sol Lewitt. And more particularly, you can find all the protocols of Sol Lewitt and how he developed those artworks, like all the wall drawings. And I see a lot of generosity into this way of making art, and not hiding yourself behind the, like you're too dumb to understand, or like it's too far from you to understand how it's made. If Otis wants to come on stage, I mean, if that's the...
I think it's okay. Speaking of the behind the scenes...
I mean, if that's the way...
I think it's the way, maybe, yeah.
To make him happy.
Come, love! Come on, love, it's okay. I know you didn't want to know how Eliasson did it, but now we all know.
We broke the...
Come, love, it's okay. All right, I think we carry on. We think we carry on.
Yeah? Okay, so I just wanted to quickly not go in details with our gallery works. We've been producing gallery works for 15 years, and the most interesting part was how this was a good way for us. Well, no, not a good way for us to have to fix many challenges. When you have someone buying an artwork, you need for your work to be stable, easy to install, not subject to obsolescence whenever there's an update on the computer, and that's many things we solved to make collectibles that we didn't have to solve after when we made exhibitions. Can you hear me on top of Otis? Okay. Then I am happy to just keep going. A bit louder on the mic? Maybe we'll see that as a competition. So in 2015, we were commissioned by an amazing person who's called Angelique Spannings, and she was at the time the director of Stripe Festival, and she's still the director and founder of Mu Gallery in Eindhoven. And she came to us with a carte blanche, commissioning us an artwork for Stripe Festival, and it was the first time that the curator invited us a couple of months in advance, so giving us time to think about what we wanted to do, and with an all-in budget. She was very transparent, and that was very new at the time. She said, okay, this is the budget I have. You are free to distribute it in the production cost and the artist fee, and you do whatever you want. This is the venue. So we did a site visit 6 months before the event, which had never happened at the time. And we decided to take the time to sit and to give ourselves this challenge to stop doing one-offs. So to force ourselves to stop being always excited by something new, because what I mentioned before from the curator side sometimes also comes from the artist side. Every time I have a new opportunity, I'm going to do something completely new. And so we decided to create a project that in its structure and in its materiality and in the equipment and technology could be versatile and could evolve through time. So in 2015, we made this first version of Blueprint. And in the way even the storyboard was structured, it was divided in chapters that could be cut, make shorter, longer, shown in different screen formats. And we also used a projector hack that Joanie and Elliot Woods found at the time. That the principle was that if you remove the color wheel of a DLP projector, you... I'm at my limit of fighting the... I think he's gonna win. Okay. So you remove the color wheel of a DLP projector, and it doubles the brightness. And on top of saving a lot of money, because then we could buy small projectors, the fact that it was small projectors allowed us to really hide them in the installation and make it immersive without the presence of heavy projectors. And thanks to that, with the all-in budget that was given to us and creating a completely new soundtrack with James Ginsberg, we could do a very big and impressive artwork with the money that was given. And in the same year, when Sonar Festival invited us to do a live performance, I'm never excited about Sonar Festival because they are terrible at production and they have shit budgets, but artists are always excited to show at Sonar. And because we had just finished Blueprint, and in the way, again, Joanie and James created their workflow for image and sound, they could use this material to create a live performance, which means that Joanie kept all his VVVV patches to create some live patches, and James had his music source that he could use raw on stage live. And the same year, again with a very shitty budget, we were invited to do an installation in a church in Paris. Beautiful church, really great festival, and we decided to readapt Blueprint and create the church version. So I don't have good documentation of the church version of 2015, but I can show you some images of the church version we presented in Leuven in 2021. And because, as I said, as an artist, you always want to do something new and be excited by what you're doing, Joanie decided for the 2021 version to add a bit of laser projection on top of the video projection. And I think it's fine. Like it's good if you need something new to keep the excitement, you can choose to add a little bit extra. The crisis. That would have been a great time for the crying. Dun, dun, dun. So, this is 2018, the beginning of a major crisis. I just...
Maybe you can just contextualize, because at this point, what is the studio like? You're co-directing it, but are you traveling a lot? Are you working digitally? Like, what's the daily setup for the studio by 2018?
Yeah, around that time. So we've tried to change, like we're already in this process of like stop doing one-offs, so making artworks stable and well finalized so they can be set up without us flying and going everywhere. But that was just the beginning, and that was for a very personal reason of like being less tired to travel all around the place all the time. And then this thing happened in 2018 that made it even more pressing and urgent to do things differently. So I'm going to tell you a story, a long story, but I'm going to try to make it short. So in 2018, while we are already in this process of doing things differently, Joanie hears about this coal mine. He sees a YouTube video of a French YouTuber who's an activist who was reporting from activists trying to block this coal mine in Germany. And Joanie sees this video on YouTube and he just can't believe it. And he cannot believe that it's an hour and a half from our studio in Brussels. So he rents a car and he decides to go there. And this is what you can see from on Google Maps. So if you all want to go on Bach Forest near Aachen, you will see that on Google Maps. And that's only one of the two mines that are next to each other. And yeah, that's the turn point. This is a bit staged because that's last year, but it hasn't changed much. And it becomes a turn point and an ontological crisis, both on a personal and a professional level. Why is it a crisis and why is it a shock on so many levels? First, the aesthetic connections between what we had been creating in terms of imaginary and landscapes and all these hyper dystopic environments that you can see some extract there. Something happens in your brain when you're facing a reality that's so close to what you've been producing as a visual artist. You're like, wait, first you start questioning, why do we have this morbid, but we didn't realize it was morbid, fascination for dystopia? Why is this the leading aesthetic in digital art? And is this something I want to see becoming real in the world? So suddenly when the digital becomes the reality, you start having a big problem. So Joanie started going regularly. Sometimes I joined him because, I mean, this coal mine and the 10% left of the ancient forest by the coal mine was the obsession 24/7. So at some point I had to go to kind of understand the shock and the obsession. And he started going again and again, documenting activism, documenting the destruction of the villages, because this is surface lignite coal, sorry. So the mine expands on the surface. It's not a mine that goes in depth. And it is, on top of it, the least efficient coal you can get. It's making really bad energy. So the only reason a mine like this still exists is because it's heavily subsidized to not change anything to the situation, and because of politics and money and lobbying and blah, blah, blah. So Joanie started going over and over, also developing new skills, very strong laser skills and gobo projector skills, doing 3D scan of villages that were going to be erased, using the equipment we had and buying new equipment, and supporting various organizations that were doing actions there. And there's one thing on top of everything was developing a strong knowledge on the mine and finding out that those big machines you saw, those baggers, are the biggest man-made machine on the planet. And some moments of the mine, you can have 20 of those in one part of the mine, running 24/7.
Wow.
And those machines were engineered thanks to Autodesk. Autodesk is a software company that us creatives like to use to make really cool things. And they make you believe they're like super green and supporting startups and blah, blah, blah. And Autodesk also made softwares that allow the mine to run 24/7. And before Joanie started going at war against Autodesk, you could even find a special page on Autodesk websites with the coal mine being a success story of Autodesk. Then Joanie kind of made it public, and then there was a Joanie Lemercier mitigation plan in Autodesk. So this is all what happened in 2018, starting in 2018, and it grew and grew and grew until 2020. Should I continue my monologue?
Yeah, it feels particularly potent for you to be sharing this story of what do we do with our addiction to fossil fuels in a context like Groningen, where, of course, there are gas fields and gas quakes, massive subsidence. It's also, you know, for someone who's just started working at the Groningen Museum, which was somewhere completely funded by the Gasunie, the gas company, thinking like, woof, what do we do with this? What money are we accepting? And thinking also of like, yeah, everybody on the planet's got to move away from fossil fuels. We're all in this big question together. And then, thinking about what can artistic practice offer, activism, also critique.
Already at that time, before we were even asking ourselves, what do we do at the studio, we already knew that we do not believe in this storytelling that we have to solve it on an individual level. It's not by doing recycling and buying an electric car that you're going to change the whole system.
Oh yeah, the batteries for electric cars.
Exactly.
What are we going to do with them? Yeah.
So we really asked ourselves, what do we do about this as a studio? Because also it didn't feel right anymore to even do. I remember the first project we almost cancelled in so many years working together was a very simple project where we were invited to create a really cool visual identity for a festival. And Joanie kept making cool visuals for months, and they were becoming cooler and cooler. But Joanie was like, it feels wrong to just put beautiful visuals out there in his home city, being just cool when the planet is burning. You know, like I said, it got that far of like even making sexy images started feeling wrong. It became really difficult for me to have the studio function because Joanie was just going to the mine in Germany.
Okay.
I'm exaggerating a bit, but when he wasn't going, he was obsessing over the CEO of Autodesk and making a fake Autodesk website and attending the green days of Autodesk online and reaching out to Autodesk employees. And then it was the mayor of Essen, that is the president of the shareholders of the mine. You know, like it became really like out of control. And at that moment, we got this invitation from Foundation Telefonica, that is an exhibition space in Madrid, and they were the first to invite us to create a monographic exhibition. And we're like, okay, what are we doing? Like, we're barely able to deliver the next project, and now doing a monographic exhibition feels like a gigantic step for us. And also, they invited us, the previous exhibition was from Team Lab. And we knew that when they contacted us, they were expecting like a cheap Team Lab exhibition, basically, a cheaper Team Lab exhibition.
So and maybe just to contextualize, Team Lab, that they do kind of.
Team Lab in the room?
I mean, maybe many people.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Explain Team Lab in a sentence.
I can also help. I can also help. It's not only on you.
You can't do it.
I said I can also help if helpful.
Do Team Lab in a sentence.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you. Have you got when you might think of like very commercially successful, fun, poppy, not particularly content-driven, but impressive.
Yeah, really well made.
Really well-crafted digital art. So kind of like
immersive environments.
Yeah.
Half of it interactive, really playful, colorful, blah blah blah. Not really talking about the end of the world. And there are like 600 of them in the studio also.
And they're based in Kyoto?
In Tokyo.
In Tokyo.
Yeah. And yeah, in a big building. Anyway.
Have you been there?
Yeah, but we thought they were like you guys.
Maybe you will work for Team Lab, yeah.
It was in 2013. We were like, we're in Tokyo, let's email Team Lab. And then we found out how many floors is there, and it was really funny.
So they were expecting a cheap Team Lab.
Exactly. And then the conversation with Foundation Telefonica went a bit like, oh wow, thank you for the invitation. Give us a minute to think about it. Then taking a month for me to like kind of manage Joanie. And then be like, okay, we have a proposition for you. We're gonna do an exhibition on 1,000 square meters, but half of it is going to be about a coal mine in Germany and the end of the world. For some reason, they said yes. Like, I still don't really understand what happened at that moment. And that was in 2019, to be honest, because the exhibition was in 2020. And when they said yes, as a curator, I had a first challenge that was to tell a story made of several artworks of 1,000 square meters, artworks that had never been made and conceptualized to be brought together. So as a curator, I consider it's one of my many roles to tell a story that's understandable for an audience. And I want to tell you that when you go in an exhibition and you don't understand where you're supposed to go, what you're supposed to understand, what you're supposed to read, it's not because you're stupid or didn't study art, it's because the curator didn't do its job. So that's my vision of a curator. Curator comes from Latin taking care of, curare. So first you take care of the artist, because if the artist is not happy, there's no art. And then you take care of the audience, because if the audience doesn't understand, then what's the point? And so yeah, first challenge, creating a story. Second challenge, because that was still the challenge we had, is to not make an exhibition that will be shown only one time in one place. So also imagine a structure that could iterate. So I'm very happy to say that this structure of exhibition was shown in 6 iterations in Spain, Peru, Mexico, and France. Some of those iterations were made without us going on site, because we had built strong knowledge from the exhibition in Madrid and the second one and the third one, so we could give good instructions for the following ones, not having to go on site.
And is this something that the studio is developing anyway, or was this part of a commitment to not wanting to fly, for instance?
Yeah, well, that was the thing with the coal mine. Coal mine in our life meant calculating our CO2 emission and seeing where we could evolve on a very data-based perspective. And what was the big surprise at the time was that our top emission as a studio were not flying everywhere, but our studio space in Brussels being very badly to non-insulated. Just heating the studio was like so many CO2 emissions. So we started by reorganizing the studio, moving into the one space that was a bit insulated, putting electricity in that space that didn't have electricity, and at the same time, wanting to not fly at all, in Joanie very extreme relationship to the situation, and in my perspective, like limit to flying to extraordinary context and extraordinary opportunities. And then this exhibition also became the right moment and the right context to develop our first audiovisual project on the coal mine. This installation is called Slow Violence. And why was this monographic exhibition the best context to do that? Is because this came so much out of nowhere for us and for our usual audience, that it really took this exhibition space to take the audience by the hand and explain them, like, okay, the beginning of the exhibition was were immersive, digitally generated landscapes, and it's a bit like, welcome, this is our tools, this is what you expect from us, this is you like wanting to immerse yourself in things that are not real. And at half of the exhibition, like, welcome to reality, no computer-made images, end of the world, but strikingly beautiful. And we didn't want people to leave the exhibition depressed and wanting to like go fight Autodesk. So the third chapter of the exhibition was focused on what do we want next. Now that we've been facing that, what do we do from that point? I'm just checking I didn't forget to tell you something important. So that's the teaser of Slow Violence. And at the end of Slow Violence, we bring a strong focus on the activists trying to block the mind. And we like this slogan from Extinction Rebellion, that with action comes hope. That it's by doing something that you can bring back the hope if you're like desperate about the situation. And also at the time, we realized that in the digital art scene, it was not so obvious at the beginning. It really started to grow at that time. And I think it became like a peak around COVID, and the peak of the peak was definitely NFTs. The presence of this ideology in our scene that comes from Silicon Valley, that is deeply rooted in capitalism, consumerism, that as a digital artist, somehow you fuel this idea that you need the latest hardware, you need the latest software, and that somehow technology is going to save us. And we realized that, we didn't realize, for us it was always obvious that we do not believe in that direction. And having so many friends from festivals starting to really support this ideology actively became a problem for us. And the problem was good because I kind of prefer this moment we are in now, where things are polarized, but it's better than pretending we are all friends and we are all happy with the way things are going. And at the time you could hear politicians saying, it's either business as usual and we hope technology is going to save us, or what do you want? Go live in caves with candles? And we're like, wait, maybe there's a third way? Like, let's try.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm quite influenced by the artist Callie Spooner, who's known for her performance works, and she introduced me to the work of the philosopher Bernard Stiegler, who talks a lot about technology as going back to the root of the word, the techne, and talking about the first technology really as being the voice. And sort of it's the first tool that activates outside of the body. And it kind of really changed my point of view to thinking about, for an artist using technology, it's about what has the artist got to say? What have they got to express? And having a much broader understanding of technology as not just being what sound card have you got and how have you rendered it, but to be about what is this work about? And it's a very interesting trajectory.
Yeah, and I think it's understandable that for so many years, because of how everything was new with technology, it was kind of okay that the artist would fall in love with its medium and its tool, and there was this kind of fascination for the tools. But at some point when, again, the planet is burning, forests are being destroyed, extractivism is at the core of what we are doing as artists using technology, you can't be just fascinated by your tool. If your tool is part of the problem, you have to question the tool if you want to fix the problem. And I want to say two things about the role of the artists in this global situation. I think many artists do not realize that they have a magic power, and we want to use this magic power. What is this magic power? Is the capacity to create things that have never been done before. If you ask many people to imagine, I don't know what, something stupid, like a flying chair, like someone will make a collage from things they've seen in a movie or in a comic. When an artist has this capacity to create an image of something that maybe is not in anyone's database. So I think that's the reason why visual artists have to use this power to project new imaginaries, create new visions, so that we can then collectively project ourselves in them. Because if not, we're just stuck, most of us are stuck with what's already out there as possibilities. The second thing, very important in terms of like understanding the necessity of being political in your work is if you have an expertise with technology, you have to speak up. You have to say that I don't believe AI is going to save us. I don't believe that going to Mars is going to help us out. And I can say that because I have this expertise and I have, you know, experience and facts that can prove it. And so that's why, because of how empty this third room, remember the exhibition from 2020, the third room was, we called it Desirable Future. And it was a bit of a, when I look at it today, it was a bit sad. It was a room with pictures. It was kind of a big mood board. It was a bit like, sorry, now we realize we have to put all our energy and effort into filling up this third chapter. And that's what we started doing since 2020. So working in different environments and actively create these new imaginaries that we want to be cool, fun, exciting. We want people to be as excited about what we're going to do as having the latest iPhone. And we are more excited to rediscover super old school invention rather than go with this race for innovation. We want repairability over obsolescence and projects that are empowering. And we want to create projects that are with nature rather than about nature. You know, all these projects, and we've done a lot of those, where it's going to be nature in a black box. Then we're like, how about we actually meet in the Botanic Park to live this experience together? And yeah, it's so funny to see how many years ago our dream residency would have been at Autodesk Pier 9 in San Francisco.
Right.
We visited that space and it was like the dream of a digital artist. Like rooms filled with CNCs in 2017. And now our dream space for residency are botanic gardens. And we want to talk about trees, about winds, about nature. And we want all of this to spark conversation and questions. That's super important for us. So I'm quickly showing some of these experiments. And this is going to lead us to the last part.
Mm-hmm.
This one. So we had already done in the past a couple of experiments with the sun, and I'd like to show this as a couple of R&Ds that sometimes start with €5 mirror and some masking tape. So for the best ideas, I would say you don't really need technology. And from this starting point, we developed for over 4 years different tools allowing us to control the light of the sun and control where we would redirect it. And regularly also doing some super analog experiments like this one that's using a Fresnel lens and for the behind the scene, what's outdoor creating this tunnel is a garbage bin. And the mirror was set up manually. And it's finally, last year in 2024, we were invited to do this dream residency by the Lake of Geneva at La Bec, and we formally created the Solar Lab. We also wanted to create something that was a bit separate from the studio, a bit to show this rupture. And I'm going to show you a couple of what we produced at the Solar Lab that have been presented until this weekend, I think, at the Solar Biennale in Lausanne. So we've made those crazy lenses, and we made them in our studio because we are very lucky to have a CNC, but it's using a very complex algorithm that is redirecting the light beams to shape a form or text. And we also worked on these heliostats that are placed on the roof of the museum and controlling the light beams to light some specific artworks inside the exhibition. I'm showing you a little video of those lenses, and it's one time a day that the sun is at the right spot in the sky and hitting the lens at the right angle to create this perfect circle. And the Solar Lab is also about creating a toolbox, so some elements we share openly with everyone online. And inside the exhibition space, and I want to say that it's really like the the early stages of the Solar Lab. So it's a lot of like laboratory kind of vibe, little models, mock-ups, plotter drawings, a mix of like imagining different futures. And this is the latest, I don't know what this is. This is not an artwork. This is, this is an object, so it's a solar concentrator, and we did it in the home city of a crazy guy called Augustin Mouchot. You can imagine alternative realities if this guy had been someone. He was the first believer in solar energy, and he created the first solar oven, and he had a vision. So we created this solar concentrator, super cheap, wood structure, manual moving parts, 3D printed behind each of the 19 mirrors. And what can you do with a solar concentrator? You can light things on fire, so you create something that's super dangerous. You can also create a sun projector. So when you've been fighting ambient light and daylight for so many years, at some point you're like, wait, how many lumens is that? That's Joanie, and Joanie has an approximate calculation of how many lumens is the sun. And then, because that's where you come from and it's okay, at night maybe you play around with a laser, and then you get Instagram requests for this light installation, and I'm like, actually it's a sun concentrator. This is just what we do at night, but it's not a light installation. So yeah, it's a lot of like learning and experimenting. And I'm going to quickly make some kind of a conclusion. This is a bit, you know, like, because we don't have much time, everything sounds super simple. I've just summarized like 3 years of me hearing about Autodesk day and night into like, we made a great exhibition, and our most successful art installation ever is video-based and about a coal mine in Germany. But it's actually really complicated. Very complex, and I want to say that we do not know what should be done, we just know what we can do, and this changes every day and every week. It's super important as a starting point to embrace your contradiction, your paradox and ambivalences, and something we learned from the activist people and context is to reject the purity test. Do you know what's the purity test?
Tell us. Tell us.
It's very simple. It's this idea that if you have a smartphone, you can't be an activist. But if the smartphone is the tool that allows you to meet with 20,000 people and block a mine, then you better have a smartphone. And it's really this constructed idea that if you're not perfect, you should just not say anything and not do anything and not change anything. So we are far from perfect. We're doing our best with what we have, what we know. And this is how everyone here who wants to do something should understand first. That doesn't matter if what you do is filled with contradiction, because it's what makes us human in the human context. Did I say all the important things I wanted to say? Yeah, so we do use social media, computers, smartphones. We still use energy and rare minerals. But I have to say that since 2020, it never happened that we made a project without asking ourselves, do we need this computer? Do we need this amount of energy? What amount of energy is it? Like, when we started asking ourselves that question, we would look at the manual, and it's full of lies. Like, the so-called energy that's written on the video projector specs is not true. Like, when you really have a finite energy, like we do sometimes, like you have a battery and you need for your show to run for 5 hours, don't trust what's written on the box. Because it's not optimized to not use energy when it's not needed. Everything we use as tools are built like if we have infinite energy and resources. And that's one part of the problem, right? So when we make our heliostats, when we kind of almost reinvent the wheel, we try to make them super light, super energy efficient, very cheap to build with very standard material, or super custom 3D parts, 3D printed parts. And that's a bit our approach to all of that.
What a sort of conclusion. It is now time for your questions. So very handily, the room is mic'd, so you can just speak in your loudest, most projected voice, and we should hear you. Go for it. Yeah, please.
Concerning your last remark, did you also encounter during an installation the opposite? That you had something that you suspected to take way more energy, but was actually that it took less energy than you expected?
So just to repeat the question, whether there was a sort of ironic moment that there was something during an exhibition installation that required less energy than you were imagining.
Well, like, that's the main reason, like, the lasers really came into the studio's practice from Joanie becoming an activist and wanting to have a backpack with a power bank and do something that's really big scale. And then after he spent many hours developing an expertise with lasers, we thought, okay, let's now use them for our artworks. And we're still amazed by how low consumption these are. And we use very often, and that's something we really like. There's those super mainstream, super commercial laser that have a built-in battery. And when you buy them, they come with an app that you put on your phone and has pre-made slogan like "Happy Birthday, Happy Halloween, Vote Trump, Vote Obama." And we're always surprised by how energy efficient these are. And they were made energy efficient for the great capitalism. And we just love to use them to put like Extinction Rebellion, like Save Palestine in between the... We don't use the stupid app, but every time I think about those pre-made slogan you could find as a really like consumer-made type of tool.
Okay, another question.
You're saying that because in like around 2018, Joanie became more activist. How was that for you? Because it seems to be that you're reacting to it, or?
So just to repeat the question, can you hear the questions, or shall I repeat them? Repeat, yeah. Exactly, yeah. So talking about in 2018, Joanie becoming very activist, how was that for you? Did you feel that you were reacting to that, or was it part of your process as well?
I think at first, I did what I always did. Like, I was kind of the one keeping the boat at floats and like being like, okay, what do we do about all this like energy and obsession and you know, and yeah, something super positive. Yeah, like pure energy, and also a lot of like a level of feeling concerned and touched, and almost, I think the worst part was maybe the betrayal. For Joanie, it was almost a betrayal in his relationship with technology. It was never like, he was never stupid and like, oh, technology is fine, but he had put a lot of himself into all of that, and then he was facing what this was causing. So it was very difficult to manage, and at first, yeah, I was kind of reacting to everyday crisis and then seeing also the potential, and I think that was the main role I played actively after just kind of passively trying to keep things in order, was seeing the potential, and I'm missing a word, like there was a level of it's not honesty, but
authenticity.
Yeah, something really, honest and authentic about what was happening there, that I felt could become the new, you know, it's almost like, okay, for 10 years it was like beautiful and well produced and kind of pleasing, now we're talking, you know? And I think I saw that potential when Joanie was just completely overwhelmed. And I think I really played a role, like I really had to force Joanie to make an art installation from those incredible footage, because it even felt it was almost wrong to use this documentation as a material to make an artwork. It was so far from its comfort zone, because he kept telling me, I'm not a video artist, like I make my material from a computer, you know, not from reality. And yeah, I think I think I kind of did what I do as a curator. I'd be like, no, you will go there, and it's gonna be great. And then there was this alignment of planet. Like honestly, from our usual context and network, if we had made slow violence, I have no idea where we would have shown it. Like honestly, it would have been impossible to understand for anyone. And since then, it became really our most successful artwork, and it finds its place in so many different contexts. And sometimes we even use it as a Trojan horse. We've shown it in a big architecture exhibition that was at the glory of a big architect agency, and we have so much control in the texts you see at the end, in the exhibition label. Like I'm really strict about the exhibition label. So then you can have slow violence in the middle of an exhibition that says that it's fine to build concrete buildings, and then people write us email like, what is this doing there? Like yeah, right? It's like the mayor of Essen visited an exhibition. Essen is the city closest to the coal mine, and the mayor of that city is the president of the shareholders of the mine, which could not happen in France. And he visited the exhibition, and he found it was a really beautiful artwork, and we're like, what the fuck? And yeah, that's great. And to go back to your question, so yeah, I went from being passive and a bit like freaking out to seeing that we could go somewhere that made sense. And something super important that I always say is that facing this complex situation we're in, I think it's very important to find your battle, become an expert in a subject, and I have to say I haven't found yet my personal battle. So Joanie is the coal expert, German coal expert, and I'm interested and involved in many subjects, but I haven't found my obsession yet. But I think for many years there was no space for another obsession in the studio.
Yeah, it's also very interesting to see the aesthetic change going from, these kind of dystopic or very future-oriented types of visuals to then after this period of activism and this understanding that trees and plants come in.
It's much more complex to make something like that that works than make a big video mapping with 35 projectors. Because what makes it much more difficult? Reality, physicality, you know, like it's not like a software bug. It's the 25th version of a design that keeps having friction, but you don't know where and why is it calibrated at 2 p.m. but completely off at 5. And it's so funny. It happened one time that in the process of, I think, making that, at some point Joanie said, the sun is in the wrong place today because it wasn't fitting the software, you know?
Yeah, so that's a nice perspective. Okay, another question, please. Here at the front.
So you mentioned before a bit about like capitalism and how it affects the work. So I wanted to ask, is your relationship with the funding for the projects, like, has it changed since 2018?
So asking the question about funding projects, ambivalences within that, and has your point of view changed since 2018?
So before that, it was already always very important for us to build an economic model. And if you build an economic model, and I'm not an expert in that, but I think a wise way to have one is to not depend on one stream. So we were always very cautious to. That's why we started working with galleries, for example. So for a little while, we were successful with a New York gallery because it was kind of trendy to have like digital-based stuff. We always worked with festivals, and in 15 years, we were lucky to do one commercial project every 2 or 3 years, and it was always like great clients' opportunity. Was never like too far from what we were doing. And so because we had this background already of being clever and having some kind of a strategy that was also having different formats of installation, you know, like I know so many artists who make only installations that need 5 meters high and 2,000 square meters, and there's less and less festivals who have this type of scale. So trying to diversify the scale of your project, trying to not, like having this all-in budget in 2015 was a great lesson for us, because just before that we had this mindset that we don't want to own any equipment, because it was very clear to us that we are not an AV company. Then you have storage, maintenance, you name it, shipping your equipment. And this opportunity made us realize, and there was another one in 2016 where we were barely paid with the artist fee, and at some point I saw that the provider who rented the screen was billing like 12K for a projection screen. I was like, wait a minute, like let's buy a projection screen and make money. And that is something that kind of forced us to own, and we try to be wise in owning things that are not like too big and too costly, and that make sense and will make a lot of projects doable. And the monographic exhibitions became also really interesting exercise, because we were approached by venues that had zero equipment and who would have spent crazy money on buying equipment, and the same people would not have spent crazy money on an artist fee. So like, you know what, we have computers and we have a couple of projectors, so maybe we can sort it out. So that's why I'm invoicing artist fee and equipment rental. And yeah, I think that was a very necessary way, and that's also something that allowed us to have lasers to do activism that were also used for installations, same with gobo projectors. And the whole thing kind of gave us some kind of independence. So we could self-fund a project like Slow Violence because we had other projects that would pay for it. So it's this kind of balance. 2025 is a really, really bad year. I'm trying to not freak out about it. Joanie is super chill. Because we've invested a lot in the Solar Lab, and what's complicated with the Solar Lab is the fact that we kind of know where we want to go, but we don't have a clear shape for the end result. So in the past, every time we invested in things we really believed in, like Slow Violence, it ended up paying off. Paying off.
Yeah, either, yeah.
Pretty well, so then it was good that we took the risk, and I'm hoping that the Solar Lab will be the same. The commissioning fee we got from the museum in Lausanne doesn't, like, maybe covers 2 months over the 2 years we've worked on what's shown there. So we're very lucky that we have something like Super Blue in Miami that was a good commissioning fee, and it's something we could do that was very c'est quoi le mot? That was very when it brings you money.
Lucrative?
Thank you. It was the Super Blue thing was very lucrative, only thanks to 6 years of R&D with water screens, because Super Blue is running for years every day, so we could deliver hardware that doesn't need maintenance, and this took many, many years of having nozzles having to be changed every other day and blah, blah, blah. So same with Super Blue. The reason it was profitable was because we provided the custom hardware. They bought a projector, a laser, and we invoice them every 3 months. It's a licensing. And yeah, this is, Super Blue is paying for our assistant salary. And without our assistant, we couldn't do all the crazy electronics that we do with the Solar Lab and the design. I'm not saying that we do need to sell what we're doing, but we have a bit of independence, and it's difficult sometimes, but we will say no to commercial projects that are coming from fossil fuel companies. It's super interesting to see. I was talking earlier about how things evolve and change. Our blacklists evolves every 2 months. It's really funny.
But Juliette, surely you should tell us about the blacklist at the bar.
Yeah, I could. I'm still like, I'm all up for alcohol and luxury brands. I'm still good with them.
Yeah.
When Joanie starts questioning Swiss corporation all linked to Nestle, I'm like, no, please, not this. Like, I know they're bad, but like,
They are.
we can't
Yeah.
fight everyone at the same time.
Yeah.
And behind the coal mine, you have BlackRock. So then you're like, really? Like.
Juliette,
but I have
this.
one good example for the room still. Like
Okay.
many years ago, our dream partnership, and I remember when we visited Refik Anadol's studio in LA in 2017, we visited his studio, and then we were in the car with Joanie and we're like, could you count how many graphic cards there were on desk? Because he just got this big partnership with NVIDIA. And at the time I was like, okay, I need to write to those people. And if today NVIDIA would write us, I think they would get a funny email from me. They would not write to us. I mean, they would be really dumb to write to us. But it's interesting to see how like same with Autodesk, your dream friend of yesterday, maybe your enemy of today.
Yeah. Juliette, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much. Thank you for the amazing questions. Thank you also to Joachim, especially to Jesse, to Lara for hosting us, for organizing. Thank you to everybody from WERC who's been involved. Can you please join me in giving Juliette a big warm applause for sharing so generously?
Thank you, Claire, and thank you for inviting me and allowing me to discover Groningen. I'm really excited by my city visit tomorrow. And yeah, I'm around. If you have more questions, come see me. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one. Before we leave, I have one announcement. Daniel, if you switch back exactly to this one. Next artist talk, 12th of December, with I'm going to mispronounce the name because it's French.
Yeah.
Adrien M.
Yeah. No. That's his company name.
That's his company name. All right, excellent. Thank you very much, and let's have a drink.